adding more people to the bus service as opposed to losing it.
Right, that is a challenge we will face between final plan and, or even before the final plan, depends on when we put out the exact schedules, but between final plan and implementation is trying to predict how many riders will use a different pattern that didn't exist before. And that's why we are taking our time with implementation. We made some mistakes with the Staten Island Express rollout, and I'm sure mistakes will be made in the Bronx and every other borough. We don't quite get it right, and this route doesn't have enough buses. This new route doesn't quite have enough buses. This route has too many buses, or the running time isn't quite right, and we're constantly monitoring and adjusting, and we will be doing the best we can with the resources we have. But yes, that's one of the challenges of rolling this out.
Carol? This is a little off topic, but how does moving bus stops impact the actual plans, in that, you know, if you move a bus stop a block away and somebody doesn't want it in front of their house or building, or, I mean, does that impact on what you do? And obviously that's a whole DOT issue, so how do you reconcile all that?
So yeah, so one issue is the DOT thing. We always will have preferences of where we want bus stops, and then DOT has the final say. Sometimes we send them something and we don't find out until later when we actually see it built on the sidewalk. Oh, that's where they decided to put it. But we are working with DOT. We're working closely with them, and as we go through and look at the various things as part of the planning efforts, we're actually going to go out in some areas, especially if they have bus stops that we know we want to adjust because of the spacing is too close. We'll look at where the optimal bus stops are to keep. We're obviously going to prefer to keep bus stops rather than adjust and move. You know, no reason to just move it down the block if it you know, could just stay where it is. That's a lot of extra work for no reason. But that's one of those individual circumstance, one by one analysis that we have to do, and we have to go work with DOT.
But they're on board to knowing that this is all part of
They know that they're
this is
in
part of the
room with us.
redesign.
They are aware, and one of the other things that we end up doing when we look at this is things like bus shelters. I myself have inadvertently taken away bus stops that had bus shelters at it over the years, and it's one of those things where we don't want to do it if we don't have to, and you have to have a real reason to do it. But we're looking at bus stop shelters, those locations, countdown clocks. If the community, through their democratic budgeting process, decided to spend local funds on putting a countdown clock there, we better not be taking away that bus stop where they spent all that money there unless we absolutely have a very definite reason to.
Wait a minute, local funds pay for the countdown?
The city council members
And community boards.
and community boards
And the
have
state.
funds.
Participatory
They're
budget.
Participatory budgeting, we haven't
There's various
discussed
different
those.
funds that pay for those things, and sometimes they choose to
Do you
have those
offer
paid for.
suggestions, or
Yes.
it's totally up to
We
them?
don't, it's,
You can, but it's over now.
No, I understand that, but I'm
We at the
saying you
MTA
have no
we're
say to
uninvolved in
where there'll be
short-term.
lollipops,
We've
where
got a
there'll
lot,
be
we've got a lot more
countdown
people with questions, so can we move on? Chris,
Yes.
and then we'll take,
Well, Dave, it's good to see you again, because I was at the Jamaica one.
That was 2 days ago.
Yeah, before the thunderstorm, yes, I got home safe. But the bottom line was, at your main event, there's one thing I think, Lisa, you should also know, and now so you should also know this as well, is what Dave did there is, it doesn't matter, he has a little circle around that, you know, you can put your thing in, but he does a video that explains what they're gonna be doing. And to be honest with you, the problem is gonna be is you got some people like to jump and don't even go to the video as they told them when you sign in. The one thing we gotta really focus on is people are still thinking the Staten Island errors, but the one thing they're forgetting, that wasn't Byford, that was before Byford. We need to make it really clear that these redesigns right now for Bronx, Queens, and the future Brooklyn, Manhattan, Staten Island, we gotta make sure that people gotta attend, or if they cannot attend, we have to work together on this.
We've been putting that out there.
When you guys do the Brooklyn one, and this is for Debbie Holmore too, the good looking lady on the left, because I'm just trying to cheer up everyone today. Because it's Thursday, and it's a good day.
come on,
Nice.
Chris.
I got stopped, so I gotta say. As I was saying is please let us know when you guys are gonna do the Brooklyn locations. Because, you know, if I live in Brooklyn, I like to make sure I get a lot of people to go those.
Thanks for bringing up the video. Maybe we should have started with that today. We didn't. The video, we're starting all our Queens meetings with the we, the MTA, made a video about a lot of things we talked about today, network redesign, what it is, the trade-offs, the things we need to balance. It's on our website. We're starting a lot of our kickoff meetings with it, so take a look.
It's on our website too.
Bradley?
So, I know that historically in Queens, the issue of full-fledged BRT has been an issue mainly because of high car ownership. Are you guys in discussions at all with DOT in corridors that actually can physically handle a full-fledged BRT of incorporating that to better connect people in Queens and to other boroughs?
We're looking at the toolbox itself. We're not looking specifically at any one whole gold standard level BRT, but yes, we're looking at all the different pieces of the toolbox and seeing how we can deploy them. One of the things we have SBS, and a lot of questions we get are about SBS. And are you going to continue SBS? Well, a lot of those tools that we use for SBS, we're trying to multiply and use across the board, like the all-door boarding. DOT is rolling out more bus lanes and getting the protected bus lanes. So we're working piece by piece with all these different pieces that do add up overall to BRT, and those kinds of pieces of the toolbox that we can employ sooner rather than later versus the capital infrastructure that's required.
Right.
We haven't moved yet to a full, separated, prioritized busway yet. but
Are you
that's-
looking at places like Northern Boulevard and
we're
other
looking
areas,
to
how
see
to better
what we
use
can do in
them?
each of these places. We don't have a specific place identified for future gold standard BRT.
So in the Bronx draft plan coming out tomorrow, there's a DOT section where they are publishing the corridors, the streets that they are looking at in the Bronx for bus priority, basically bus lanes or protected bus lanes, just initial glance. So they're part of this process. In one instance, we said, no, what about this street? We're adding a bus route to this street, so it's going to have more buses than it does today. How about you take a look? That's now on the list. So it's a back and forth. I think the big picture BRT, the next generation SBS, will come a little bit after network redesign, perhaps. Still figuring that out. But yeah, that's part of the process.
Is a good way for our group to push to make sure that bus lanes are protected is like camera enforcement?
Yes.
And like, what can we do as a group to help support dedicated lanes and making sure that that happens?
Bradley, why don't we have this conversation offline?
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, that's fine.
Get to the other.
Because there are major impacts
Yeah, I know.
well, no, excuse me.
Go ahead.
People cannot get on Accessorize with protected bus lanes. It's a tremendous problem.
So that's a conversation will continue.
It's, yeah.
Andrew? I have more of a global question in the sense of trying to make I think we're trying to make this into an intermodal system now, meaning that we have to get the buses and the trains to work together.
And that's, yes.
And in the sense of, I mean, especially like, we're talking more like the late night hours and stuff where, when you're talking about, especially with the bus service where it'll be sparse and X amount of time between buses at those hours. And is there a way of being able to do something with the subway? You know, if the train is, you know, meaning for like the train, we should say, for the bus to be able to wait for when, if the train is like running late and stuff of that nature.
We've done that in a couple places. I'm not sure we're necessarily looking at that as part of this project. I will say about the intermodal, something I was going to mention in the presentation and I forgot. A lot of the bus network dates from before MetroCard and free bus to subway transfer. And now we're building more ADA accessible subway stations. Can we short a bus at a new ADA accessible subway station? Because the subway carries more people than a bus and goes faster. Again, I'm not referring to any specific example, but it's sort of the theoretical approach.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's more of a global
Global,
question.
yes, exactly. That's what we're trying to look at, the system as a whole.
Please.
Yes, I like you mentioned something about Q52 and Q53 select bus service. To me, Q52 is a great, Q52 deserves an A because it runs from Elmhurst to Auburn, because I don't live too far from the 52. And Q53 runs from Woodside to Rockley Park. and that route deserves a B also. But, my grade, I really lived in the Q113 and Q114 routes. Those routes they get a D for me, because they don't know how to run correct during the week. But on weekends, they do know how to run. They do know how to run on time, but during the week, forget it.
Right, and that's one of those things we've heard, especially Southeast Queens as a whole. A lot of people just want to get to Jamaica faster no matter what it takes. And so the existing way that we run buses as locals and then some as limited, maybe we carve out and do a different kind of a semi-express where it just picks up in further out areas and drops people directly at Jamaica and doesn't try to pick up along Guy Brewer and Merrick all the way. Those are one of those things we're looking at, different ways of creating service.
Zone Express.
Like a Zone Express. We're looking at those as part of network redesign because, and then the question is, so maybe there's some place like 120th Ave that has a bus right now and it's got 15-minute midday service, but really if we cover the peaks and then maybe some in between and then do some sort of Zone Express, maybe we don't need to have that bus on 120th all day, and we can take that bus that's being used for that and move it somewhere else that needs more of a midday service. So we're looking at how that all fits together as a grand puzzle.
We have time for two more, folks. Yes?
Have you been able to interface with Uber and the other services that have a big database?
We have some data from DOT, that DOT gets their data from the TLC. So we have the data, but we don't work directly with them.
Because in a sense, they back you up.
And then also the commuter vans that exist. Again, I'm based in, most of my stuff's in Queens, so I'm
But people have
focused
that
on that.
choice,
Yeah,
you know.
but so we have as much data as DOT can give us about the commuter vans to see, especially then again the Far Rockaway, the Q22. We have commuter vans, dollar vans running right along the Q22, and so how much did our changes last year, the Q22, affect the ridership on dollar vans? That's a question we're trying to see if we can get any information on, because we tried to improve the Q22 to the point that people wouldn't need them as much, but we don't have the resources to necessarily track because they are, most of them, not licensed, and so we can't see unless you go out and just have someone count people getting on. So that's one of those challenging bits of data.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the mix.
Yeah.
Difficult.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This is a really great start, and we'll be seeing you at the individual meetings, I'm sure. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
Any other business? Matt?
Yes, old and new combined, and I'll make this fast, since you already got it dying. The MTA lawsuit against the installation of the elevators, the hearing will be held on June the 5th at Chambers Street.
Okay, you've turned it completely around. The lawsuit is from the community
Okay.
against the MTA. It's not the MTA the MTA is the recipient, whatever.
Plaintiff, right?
No,
The defendant.
defendant. The community is the plaintiff.
Whoever. Right, we're the ones bringing the lawsuit,
Yes.
not the MTA.
Right. Exactly.
Andrew, make a motion to.
Disability rights.
All right,
advocates.
any objections?
No.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Person, this is the further